Hey guys, so this is the KZ Castor in-ear monitor. Now these in-ear monitors have tuning switches on them, and based on how you position these tuning switches, you can get a particular audio signature based on your taste. I'll obviously break this down as we go down further. Now these have two versions. So one is the KZ Castor with the Harman target curve, and the one I have is the Castor with the Harman target curve with enhanced bass. So it's the gray version which I have here. So in this episode, I'm going to talk about whether this tuning switch implementation actually makes any substantial difference or not, which tuning position is my favorite, and whether they have hit a home run with the KZ Castor. So with that said, let's get in with the unboxing. So the KZ Castor comes in a very eco-friendly packaging, and by that I mean it's very bare bones, nothing fancy at all. Inside the pack you get the instruction manual, you get silicone ear tips of various sizes, and you also get a single pair of foam ear tips that come attached with the in-ear monitors themselves. You get the oxygen-free copper cable that has 2-pin connectors on one end. Now the version I have comes with an inline microphone with a multifunction control button, and at the end you have an L-shaped 3.5mm audio jack. You get a tuning needle to maneuver these tuning switches on the monitors themselves, and of course you get the KZ Castor in-ear monitors themselves. Now as for the specs of the KZ Castor, so these have dual dynamic drivers which have a stacked design. So one driver is a 10mm dynamic driver that takes care of your low end primarily, and then the other 8mm driver takes care of your mid and high frequencies. Now these have an impedance of 16 to 20 ohms, which is obviously a low impedance in-ear monitor, but I would still suggest that you invest in a portable DAC, nothing too fancy or expensive, just something that can provide these with ample power so that these leave nothing in the tank and you can get the best quality sound possible. And as always, I'll leave the one that I use in the description below. Now let's talk about the unique feature or spec that makes the KZ Castor special, which is its tuning switches on each of the monitors. So they've got 4 tuning switches, and each of these correlate to a certain frequency being boosted. So as per the manual, positions 1 and 2 or tuning switches 1 and 2 are going to give you a boost in the sub lows and the lows, while 3 and 4 are going to boost the mid to high frequencies. So what I found in my testing was that while 1 and 2 definitely is going to give you a subtle boost in the low end and the sub lows, 3 and 4 would be a boost to the mid and high frequencies and ultra high frequencies. So 4 is definitely for the ultra high frequency, and I'll get into more detail later. Now as for the build quality, this although is resin and the faceplate kind of feels like metal, but I'm not too sure and they don't mention it anywhere. Either way, it doesn't feel cheap. It's a standard build, and it's got a see-through design where you can literally see the stacked dual dynamic drivers inside, which I think is pretty cool. And as for comfort, these also sit quite snug on your ear, and although these are a bit chunky and stick out, they're not uncomfortable, and they don't fatigue your ears, they don't wear out your ears even for long listening sessions. So overall, with the comfort and the build quality, I'm pretty satisfied. But of course, the glossy finish on the faceplate is definitely going to get a lot of fingerprints, which obviously you can just wipe off. Alright, so now with the build quality and specs out of the way, let's talk about the main criteria, which is the audio quality. How did the KZ Castor perform? So if you're an existing viewer, you know that I judge in-ear monitors based on how they produce the 3 main frequencies that broadly make up any sound that you hear. The highs, the mids, and the lows. The highs are the treble, where the really sharp sounding instruments are, the mids where the vocals are, and the low end or the bass response. Now before I give you my breakdown of the sound quality, I have to say that I did this review with all the tuning switches in their off position without having any of them turned on. So that kind of gives you the flattest sound signature possible out of these, and then I will let you know if it makes a difference when I tweaked around with the tuning switches, and which position of the tuning switches I found was the best in terms of the overall frequency response. Okay, so starting off with the high frequencies or the treble response, I was really impressed by how much detail and richness was rendered by these in-ear monitors with so much of control. Not a single time did it have any sort of sibilance, did it overdo, did it sound tinny or unpleasant. So it had beautiful control throughout, packed a ton of detail, and every instrument in that frequency range was clearly audible. Now coming to the vocals or the mid frequencies, now for the most part, vocals pack a ton of detail, they have a lot of clarity, and they also sound very natural. But what I noticed as I heard more and more songs was that I found that male vocals didn't sound as warm or as deep as I would want them to be. Now, this drawback in the male vocals is exactly what favored female vocals because they sounded far more pristine and they sounded cleaner. So male vocals tend to sound a tad bit thin, lacking a bit of that depth in the vocals, while female vocals kind of gained a lot of advantage for this exact drawback. And on top of that, the mid frequencies could have used a bit more cleaning up because the low end does creep into or eat up a bit of the lower mids. So that leaves very less space for separation, and sometimes at max volume you'd find a bit of the lower mids and the low end getting a bit jumbled at times. Not in the form of distortion, but just that they could have sounded a bit more clean. So that is the only observation. But in general, if I'm not being too harsh, I would say vocals again pack a lot of clarity, a lot of detail, and you don't miss out anything. So it does a pretty commendable job. And finally, we get to the low end or the bass response. Now, the version I have, like I said, is the enhanced bass version, which means that obviously it has a very good bass response and it absolutely delivers. So with the tuning switches, all four in their off position, the bass response you get is extremely mid bass heavy. So the slam is super hard and it hits you with a lot of force. And it's very fast as well. So music and songs that are bass heavy sounded very, very good. Actually, phenomenally good. So a bass head would be very, very happy. But while listening, what I was craving for was a bit of the sub lows. I was missing that rumble. So that is when I turned on the tuning switches 1 and 2, which are catered towards the bass response or the low end. That is when the sub lows came in. So then I got a mix of the really hard hitting slam of the mid bass as well as the rumble of the sub lows. And that was a treat to listen to, and it's an absolute treat for bass heads as well. But when you turn on 1 and 2, what takes a hit, in my opinion, was a bit of the sparkle in the vocals. So I turned on switch number 3. So I turned on 1, 2, 3. So 1 and 2 for the sub lows and the lows gave a boost to that, and 3 gave a boost to the mid frequencies and a bit of the high frequencies. For me, 1, 2 and 3 turned on while 4 is off is the ideal position to get the most detail, to get the most rich and immersive sound with ample, thick, hard-hitting bass. So this is what I prefer. That is the setting I would use. If you don't want the excess bass and the really sparkly highs, you could just keep all of them off and you'll still get a very impactful sound experience. Alright guys, just to summarize, I honestly can't wrap my head around how KZ was able to come up with the KZ Castor with such amazing and phenomenally good tuned sound signature for a price that is around 1700 rupees or $12. So it's just insane. The KZ Castor can easily compete with other in-ear monitors that are going to cost you like 7,000 to 8,000 rupees. Having said that, of course, it's not perfect. It has the drawbacks like I mentioned, but even having those drawbacks, which are by no means a deal breaker, what it brings to the table overall as a package, and especially in terms of its sound quality, which is phenomenally impressive, I think that anyone who's just getting into the realm of in-ear monitors, or if you're in your audiophile journey, the KZ Castor is something you should absolutely invest in. Alright, so there you have it guys. That was my review of the KZ Castor. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you have any other questions regarding this in-ear monitor, do hit me up in the comment section below. I'll try my best to answer them. I'll leave links to this in the description below, and as always, I would highly appreciate that if you use those links to make your purchase, because that will help me run this channel and I can produce more such high quality and helpful content just for you guys. So thank you so much for stopping by. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit like on the video, share this with your friends, and as always, I'll catch you guys very soon in the next one. Cheers.